Well, the NFL draft is over and the teams have made their pick. It's time to talk about which teams helped themselves the most and who fell short. Winners and losers next on Good Sports. Thanks and welcome for joining us. I am Randy Goode, and it's time to be armchair quarterback and give our opinions on who nailed their picks the most and who maybe fell short and missed on their opportunities. As always, if you like and hear what you see, then please hit the subscribe button and like it, as we would love to get that feedback. It helps us with our content, so please feel free to do that. Tonight, we are joined by Trent Snead. We're going to be talking about the draft and looking forward to that. Trent, how you doing after a long weekend of digesting all those picks?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing good. Randy, I believe I throw the ball the best from the chair. So,
oh, perfect.
Yes,
you got it all figured out.
Yeah, I got it all figured out. I'm a little stressed out just over the whole thing. I mean, the draft, it will really get you going. If there's a certain guy you really want and you're just sitting there waiting for him, it can be stressful moments for sure.
Yeah, the blood pressure definitely rises at times. It did for me. So we'll get into it. We're going to start off and talk about who we thought were on the losers side of things. However, to be fair, nobody's even put pads on, so we don't really know at all. This is just our picks and what we project going forward. And that can be a criteria based on a whole bunch of things. Yours can be yours, mine can be mine. It could be based on next year. You know, who do you think were the winners and losers for next year or the future? So you kind of give your opinions and I'll give mine. We're going to start with our three biggest losers. You go first, third from the bottom. Who do you have as missing some opportunities?
Well, no one's going to believe me, but this is a non-emotional pick. I just want to say the Cowboys are my number 3.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Grant's gonna be really upset.
Yes.
I'm so sorry, Grant. I think the main reason is, the Cowboys had the opportunity. They lost some linemen over the last couple of years, and then they go and they take Tyler Guyton. I mean, is he the tackle? Is he the tackle you're probably going to take there? Probably. Mm-hmm. Did they have a much better center and a much better guard sitting there, and they also need those positions? Yeah. I just felt like the quality of player at that position was just not maybe what I probably would have taken. I think Tyler Guyton, he's definitely a player that if he fills out, he's a little on the thin side right now for a starting tackle. I think if he fills out, he could be really good. So I gave them kind of like we'll see how it lands on that one.
Sure.
And then they took Marshawn Kneeland. I believe that was in the second, and I actually love that pick. Kneeland was actually a player I had my eyes on. So I actually give them an A++ for that exact pick right there. That was actually something I would have taken. Cooper Beebe, plus or minus on that one. Some people had him high, some people had him low. I had him much lower than I think they probably thought about him. Just watching some of his tape, I did dig into the linebackers probably a lot more than maybe most people, just because I felt like that was a strong need for the Eagles. And I can tell you Kneeland was not high on my board. But I think he is a player that in the right system, especially the Cowboys, where they have a history of really getting a lot of linebackers to go through that program and become stars. It's a possible thing that Cooper could end up being a good player. And then they took some other guys later in the rounds. But I think the big overall thing that really just killed it for me is they took 0 running backs. And then they signed Zeke. I mean, I just don't think that was probably the move that I'm making. No running back at all is crazy. And then a day after they signed Zeke to a 1-year contract, which is even crazier. So
yeah, I think he was having flashbacks of 7 years ago when Zeke was doing something. So for me, my third team, this is maybe an emotional pick, but it's the 49ers. When you're that close to winning a Super Bowl multiple years in a row, and you have a glaring need at right tackle, you do have right guard and stuff that they need, but they had a glaring need, and they could have traded up. They had 3 fourth-round picks, and they could have got Guyton, who is a potentially a good tackle. He's borderline to be okay to good tackle, but at least you feel a need. we're bad at that position. And so what you look at in the draft is you take all your players and you look next year and you say, are you better next year? And I don't think the 49ers are I would say they're maybe slightly at best better.
Yeah.
The only reason that I think they potentially have a starter in their 3rd round pick, Puny, he's a guard that can play. He's not great, but he's good at all the positions. So you're really drafting for somebody who's a little better at guard, but can play multiple positions. In the 1st round, the 49ers could have taken the best center. Center is a 92% hit rate in the 1st round, and we could have taken a guaranteed center. And we need an upgraded center. But instead of taking a guaranteed center, we went with a receiver who I like the receiver. I'd have been really happy getting him in the 2nd round, which we could have.
Pretty Ricky Parasol.
He has potential to be a really good receiver. I see why they took him, because we're going to not have Debo next year. That's pretty much a guarantee. However, we could have got him in the 2nd round. So part of these things for me is, are you improving your team this year? No, he's not going to play very much unless there's an injury. 2, did you take any, where did you draft a person? So we drafted 31. Nobody had him in the top 40, and we drafted him at 31.
Yeah.
So that makes no sense. Our 2nd round pick, we took a cornerback. I think he's going to be really good, and I think he will be a good pick. However, where he was picked, almost nobody had him picked there. It was a 3rd round to 4th round pick. So good players picked way earlier. So either trade back. Our 3rd round pick, I felt really good about. Our 4th round, they got Malik. He's going to be a stud safety.
Yeah.
I think we did some things there, and then we drafted another receiver. We took Owens Jr. as an undrafted free agent. So we now have like 11 of our 50 players are receivers.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to throw to that many people. They're not going to make the team. And then we took a running back. I don't know. He was also picked. Most everybody the 49ers picked were projected to go later. So you're not getting the guy at the right spot. You could trade back or pick him later. And they didn't fill their need. Their number 1 need tackle, they didn't fill it. So that's my take. Good players picked in the wrong position.
Okay, so I got a question for you, and this is actually something that was talked about quite a bit in the last couple of years, and there was like a stretch where Howie Roseman kind of started picking these players that were like, you're like, I don't know if that guy's even close to working out. And it felt like we were always picking that guy maybe a round early. And he actually addressed it at one point, and I don't know how confirmed this is, but I know he addressed it at one point, and he actually made a statement around the time that he thinks he may have been just getting a little too, like, let's get a little too fancy with it, And we were taking guys from like smaller schools and maybe putting like a 1st round grade on a guy from a smaller school, but we're like, his ceiling could be crazy high. And really, we're just taking major risks on guys who are most likely going to fall to the floor. And we had some drafts that were bad. I mean, really bad. We drafted really good in the last 2 years.
But he learned from those mistakes.
I think he learned from those mistakes. Do you feel like that's maybe what's going on with John Lynch right now?
I honestly think it's Kyle, and I think he's smart, but that's a problem for him too. I think he's so smart, he thinks his scheme can do anything, and if he puts robots in place, then he can do it. And so he just looks for the best robots. And some hit, some miss. It makes no sense to me to have 10, 11 receivers on your roster. When you barely lose a Super Bowl because the right side of the line can't block, I think it's insane to go 2 drafts in a row and not address your huge. Why did Brock Purdy get hurt? He didn't block on the right side. Mm-hmm. That cost them the opportunity to go to the Super Bowl, whether they would have or not. But they blew it, and then they did no tackles, came back with the same tackles, and then this year don't block Chris Jones right side. I just don't understand it. It's like he, for whatever reason, has these tremendous strengths, but there's like a void somewhere, and it's a stubbornness, and he just, I think, thinks, he likes linemen that block against the run. Mm-hmm. And so, anyway, makes no sense. It's frustrating to be so close, and everybody's saying, get a tackle, and he's 0 for the last 20 picks on getting a tackle. That's just mind-boggling. Number 1 need, didn't address it. But we did get a running back that we traded 2 picks for. We did get 3 wide receivers, so that
That's
was
a little sarcasm. Going on.
massive sarcasm. Massive. So let's move on so I can get the blood pressure down.
Yeah.
Number 2 on your list.
Number 2, this might be actually a surprise, but I had Cleveland.
Okay. I can see that.
The Browns, honestly, their first pick, Michael Hall, not a huge fan of that pick. Honestly, I could have went without that one for sure. Honestly, the only pick in their whole entire draft that I gave them a positive rating was the one they stole. The one they got away, Randy. Oh, my gosh. Makes me sad just thinking about it. Zach Zinter out of Michigan. The guy should have been a second rounder at the latest. Yeah. He ends up going day 3. I think it was day 3. Yeah. We traded. No, sorry. It was day 2.
Day 2, right?
Late
before
day 2.
Philly.
Yeah, right before a Philadelphia Eagles team who traded back thinking they were going to just move back and still get him. Oh, I know it too. The thing that sucks is the Eagles trade away that pick as soon as he gets taken. So you're like, you knew that. That's what they were doing. Right. They were trading back. They were going to let everyone else kind of take some picks. They were going to get some picks in the background, and they were going to take them right there at the next pick. And as soon as Cleveland took them, they were like, yep, we're out of here. Trade out. But anyways, that's enough about Zach Zinter. He's going to go on to be a pro, that's for sure. But the rest of them, Jamari Thrash, Nathaniel Watson, not a huge fan of any of these picks. I gave them minus grades on every single player they picked except for Zach Zinter, which is super sad.
Yeah, and after the whole, they didn't have a first-round pick, right?
Correct.
So you can't afford to miss on your picks when you have your main picks gone. That's going to be hard, and that'll be hard to overcome.
Correct.
So, okay, so my number 2 is the Dallas Cowboys. That makes me feel good knowing that they were slightly worse than us. They could have, again, got the best center out there. They had him there for the taking. And I like they traded back to maybe get more picks. They got a tackle that I think it could potentially be a good tackle, but they could have had a great center. And
I don't think anyone even argues the fact that they trade back wasn't a fantastic move.
Yeah.
I mean, that was an amazing move.
And they could have still kept the center. When you can get a guarantee, when you need both, a tackle, and you can get a guarantee, or you can get, nothing's a guarantee, but a more likely guarantee versus an okay to good, I don't know. That doesn't make any sense. And then the Zeke deal, getting Zeke, you get no running backs, and you come back with Ezekiel Elliott, who was not good for you 2 years ago, followed up by a mediocre year last year. No one wants him. Jerry Jones is having flashbacks of something. I don't know what's happened. And then the best part of the draft is they're talking to him, and they're actually speaking to him about the running back. I'm trying to remember his name.
Not the small...
Jonathan Brooks.
Yes.
So they ask about Jonathan Brooks, and he's like, "Oh, he's the best interview I've ever had. He is really high on our draft board. He is awesome." And he starts going off, and then his son nudges him and said, "Don't give away our draft board." The next day, Carolina moves up, picks him right before Dallas, and they lose their draft board because Jerry has a moment of Jerryism.
It's a senile moment.
And so now they don't get the running back. Now they have to have an old guy that's got shot legs. So
Can we get a fact checked on how old Jerry is? How old is Jerry Jones? He's got to be in his
82.
80s. 82?
That's my guess.
That's your guess?
Yeah.
That's like what?
Don't be confused by the... Well, I won't say that. He's had some things to try to help him look a little younger, but I'm going 82. He's 81.
Oh my
81.
gosh, 81
Pretty
years
close.
old.
But I think right now he's leading a team like an 82-year-old.
Yeah.
Anyway, so who do you have down as your number 1 team that blew it?
Oh, man. I've seen a lot of people really supporting this draft, and I'm not going to.
Okay,
I'm not going to sit here. The Falcons.
Oh, good Lord, yes.
I'm not going to sit here. I don't know. I watch a lot of these ESPN guys, and they're like, man, no, it was a good pick.
No.
And I'm like, no. And it's nothing to do with Penix. There's nothing wrong with Penix. First of all, I understand that maybe, us as people on the outside don't understand the value of someone. I get it, right? We might have had a late first-round grade on Penix, and there might have been 3 or 4 teams that meet this guy in person. We don't meet him in person. There might have been 3 or 4 teams that train this guy in person. We don't train him in person. And they maybe had a top 10 grade on this guy. It has nothing to do with Penix. Absolutely nothing to do. In fact, I don't even have a problem with them using that high of a pick for him. That's not honestly even my problem. Even if they moved back in the first round and still took him, I probably would say the same thing. My problem is you paid someone a guaranteed at least 2 years, a lot of money, to be there at your quarterback. And then you go and get this guy. And, people said, yeah, but, they signed or they went and or the Packers traded up for, I'm forgetting Jordan Love.
Jordan Love. Totally different scenario.
Totally different scenario. Completely different.
Yes.
And anyone who says otherwise is crazy. Completely different scenario. Okay. First of all, these quarterbacks aren't even close to being the same player.
No.
Not even close.
No.
Michael Penix is a completely different quarterback than you get from, Kirk. So Jordan Love, you watch Jordan Love play, he's Aaron-esque, When he throws the ball, you're like, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
He definitely trained with Rodgers.
Yeah, he's got something.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that Jordan Love's going to be a star, but, you could see it when he plays. This is the thing. I just don't think it's anywhere near the same. Not only was the Jordan Love pick in the 20s, Penix is in the top 10. And you're going to take this guy. And I just don't see how, I guess what I'm saying is if you've already paid this guy, I think your mistake was just paying Kirk Cousins. But if you already paid this guy all this money, and then you're going to say, okay, I'm going to take a quarterback in the first round. I get that you love that quarterback, but whoever's that quarterback isn't benefiting off the fact that you still have a ton of holes on that team. I just don't think it makes any sense. I gave them a minus grade on every single one of their players, except for Braylon Trice out of Washington. I actually like Braylon Trice. Not a high plus grade on him. I just give him a plus or minus for this example, but Braylon Trice I had a low plus on. Yeah. I feel like if there's a chance that he could work out. So
I'm agreeing with you. And on the Jordan Love analogy, another thing is huge difference. Aaron Rodgers was year to year. Is he going to retire? They don't like each other. Is he going to leave, quit, join Jeopardy? I mean, nobody knows what he's going to do. So you get Love as we got to be just in case. We don't know what Aaron Rodgers is going to do. Kirk Cousins is steady. He's a team guy. Everybody likes him. And you paid him $100 million so you can get out of it on year 3, but then you still have $25 million in dead cap money, even if you go year 3. So what did you do? Did you make yourself better in the draft? Well, the plan is to not play him year 1. So year 1, you didn't do anything. Year 2, plan is to not play him. Okay, so, and maybe year 3. By the time you possibly play Michael Penix Jr., if he's good, then that's when that contract ends, and now you're going to have to pay him again. So you're not taking advantage of a rookie contract quarterback cheap. That's an advantage of taking a rookie quarterback, is that you can pay other positions. So instead of taking Ndunze, getting a receiver to help him out, you took somebody who you're planning on not playing and paying $100 million in that position. I think it's insane. He better be unbelievable, and he'll pay off for you 5 years from now.
Yeah.
That to me is a crazy pick. That's why Atlanta, is Atlanta.
Penix is old.
Yeah.
He's not a young quarterback.
And he's not a sure thing. You got to hope that he projects much better than everybody else. He maybe could be good, but he's guaranteed to not play unless you have a catastrophe happen with, but when you're paying $100 million guaranteed money, that's just insane. To me, that's insane.
I agree.
So
and what do people do when they get older? They usually get hurt a lot.
They do get hurt.
And he already has a huge history of being hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say he doesn't even play until year 3. Let's say the first 2 years are all Kirk. And then you finally get him in the door. You finally say, whatever, we're going to get rid of Kirk's contract. We're going to let him out the door. So after year 2, you go into year 3. So that's 3 years from now. He finally gets his first start. He's going to be, 27, 26 or something like that?
Yeah. I think he's 24 now.
24. Yeah. So he's going to be 27.
Yeah.
At least.
Yep.
And he's finally going to get a start at 27 years old. It's like Brandon Weeden all over again.
So you have quarterbacks that are taken in the first round, especially when you're the 4th, 5th quarterback. He was taken before Bo Mix. But when you're at that level, most of the time they're misses.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time. So you're taking a player that is mostly a miss. There was no defensive player off the board yet. You could have the best defensive player. You could have had, an edge rusher they could use. They could have used another top receiver. They could have used so many things to help who you said. I mean, I would be shocked if they would have paid for Kirk Cousins, knowing they would also have Michael Penix Jr.
Yeah.
I don't think they do that contract. It shows either one or two was the mistake, doing Kirk Cousins or this pick. Anyway, insane to me. Winners. Let's go to winners right now. Third best pick that you would, or team that made their picks. Who do you have?
I got the Buccaneers.
The Buccaneers.
The
Okay.
Buccaneers.
There you go.
They get a short-armed tackle out of Duke, Graham Barton. I don't think he has a future playing tackle in the NFL, but
think he's a guard.
I think he's a guard. But does he have a killer? Is he
Mean
could he be?
streak?
Yeah, I mean the guy could be an awesome guard.
Yeah.
So and the Buccaneers have a good history of developing their linemen.
Yeah.
So they've for the most part they've done pretty good development line over the years. So Graham Barton. Don't think he's gonna be a tackle, but I think he's gonna be an awesome guard. Chris Braswell, I got a plus or minus on him. And then Tyke Smith, and then Jalen McMillan. Actually, I was pretty high on Jalen McMillan. So Tyke Smith out of Georgia, safety. Or at least I'm pretty sure. I'm almost positive. Let me double check that.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure I had a pretty high grade on him. Yeah.
Okay.
Tyke Smith, safety out of Georgia. Yep.
Yep.
So pretty sure if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure he was actually one of the safeties out of Georgia that was a pretty heavy hitter. So I'd be interested to see how that pans out for the Buccaneers. They have some, decent secondary over there. So hopefully he can take some time to develop, and they can start working him actually in, and hopefully it goes good for him. But Jalen McMillan, Washington, he was the wide receiver behind Roma Dunze. So I think he was actually a pretty solid receiver. Penix used him quite often, but you take them in the third round, and hopefully you get a flyer on wide receiver. They're more likely to fail, but hopefully you take enough flyers on a few of them, and it ends up working out.
49ers will have plenty they're going to have to get rid of, so you can always go there. All right, so for me, the third best team, to me, it's tough to say, but I think the Chargers did well, but I don't have them in the top three. They were close, but I have the Eagles. Now, the reason why I have the Eagles there is if you look at what they have done in the offseason, they shored up their offense, and they're set. Their offense wasn't their problem, and that was a strength of theirs, and now they're set for years and years to come. Their problem was on the back end of the defense. That was a huge weakness of theirs. So what did they do? They got the best corner at the 21st pick or somewhere around there? 22nd pick. Okay, so they get a stud. And then the second round, they get another Cooper. They get Cooper, who is projected to be a first-round pick. So their first pick, this is part of why I say people do. If you take your player that fits your need and you get value. So if you get somebody at 22 that's projected to go 14, then you're getting good value and you're getting something that fits your need. Then they go in the second round because they're really weak in the back end, and they have some leaders that can help kind of mentor them as they grow or whatever. Then they get another player that's projected to go in the first round. They get him in the second round. I think they took their most important need, filled it, and got great value.
You know what's really funny is it's so Howie to do that too.
Yeah.
He actually got that from Andy Reid, who obviously is now fulfilling all that with the Chiefs right now. But they used to call it the double down method. And basically they would just double down on what they needed.
Yeah.
And you just, I need a cornerback. I'm going to take two of them. I need a wide receiver. I'm going to take two of them.
Yeah.
Andy Reid does the same thing. Look at any of his drafts. He's the exact same way.
And both of those players could possibly play. And this was why I had the 49ers lower. They did the opposite. They didn't take their most important need, and they got bad value. That is just crazy. Adam Peters goes off, another team that I thought did pretty well, the Commanders. He nails the picks, and he took their needs. And so anyway, so for me, the Eagles, I think were number 3 for me, and I think other stuff when you hit the top end of your draft, the bottom end you can fill, and it's just kind of a cherry on top of things. You know what I mean? So number 2, who do you think did the second best?
I got the Pittsburgh Steelers,
Okay.
and honestly, some Steeler fans were a little sad.
Yeah, we know.
Poor Craig.
Yes.
But Troy Futanu, out of Oregon State, or sorry, my bad, Washington. I apologize. Man, he's a stud.
Yeah.
He's a stud. He's going to be a starting tackle for them. They now have 2 bookend tackles, which if you're just trying to start a good offensive line, there you go. That's a good way to start. They're going to protect whatever quarterback's starting over there this year. And then they come back, got to be kidding me, come back in the second round, and they get Zach Frazier out of West Virginia, probably my second graded center. Yeah, and he's probably actually my second graded interior lineman. I mean, Zach Frazier could end up playing, he could play guard or center. He could play both. He's probably a little undersized for guard in today's league, but he can play guard or center. And so now you have 2 bookend tackles between last year's draft and this year's draft, and you take a center. Man.
I know, they nailed it.
They nailed it.
They did really well.
So now you have a great offensive line for, once again, whoever's going to throw the ball, whether it's Justin Fields or Russell Wilson. And then you got Roman Wilson out of Michigan. It's a run first program over there in Michigan, right? And what do the Pittsburgh Steelers love to do? They want to run the ball, right? And now you got Russell Wilson.
They got 2 running quarterbacks.
Yep.
They got an offensive line that they can run. They got receivers that can do jet sweeps. They
have 2 stud running backs.
Yep.
Right? So now you have an offensive line that's only gotten better since last year. 2 stud running backs. You go and get a wide receiver who specializes in blocking. I mean, if you're a wide receiver for Michigan, you know how to block.
Yeah.
You do.
That's
and so now you go and get a wide receiver that knows how to block, right? And then they go and get Peyton Wilson out of NC State, right? I actually had a second round grade on Peyton Wilson, and they took him in the 3rd. So I had a great grade on him. He's a great linebacker. Yeah, no, killer. And then they go and take a flyer on Mason McCormick out of South Dakota State. They take a flyer on Logan Lee and then Ryan Watts. Mason McCormick, I think, has a chance to maybe work out. I saw him in a couple of draft grades earlier on. They took him in the 4th. But I think those first 4 picks, Troy Fatanu, Zach Frazier, Roman Wilson, Peyton Wilson, I think all 4 of them actually have a chance to start on this team.
Yeah, they're definitely difference makers.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. So for me, my number 2 team was Chicago. Now, obviously, they had the number 1 pick, and so you can say that helps them. Caleb Williams, a lot of people have him high on their board. You never know. Different people have different opinions. I think he's going to come in, and he's coming into a great situation. They've got a good defense or a good offensive line. They've got, you get Udunze at the 9th pick, so you give your quarterback a great wide receiver, and you pair him with already established DJ Moore, a stud number 1. So you have a number 1 next to a potentially number 1. And then, what about Keenan Allen, who had a great year last year? Yep. So he has 3 receivers. He has a decent line. He's got a good defense. I mean, they're in a good place. I think what they did was they said, our quarterback situation, we're going to move on from Fields. He didn't get us over the hump. He couldn't get 3rd downs. He couldn't do certain things. He didn't stay in the pocket. He didn't do the things that he needed to do. And then they got receivers. Now they got receivers. They've got running game. They've got it all. I think they're going to be really, really improved. And they were already a 7-win team, so I thought they did really well. Your number 1 winner, who do you got?
My number 1 winner, I really wanted to say the Eagles. Oh, gosh, I love those birds. Anyways.
Hey, I got you at 3rd. So.
Okay, we'll take it. No, I left the Eagles out of it. New Orleans Saints, my number 1 winner.
Okay.
Honestly, it was between them and the Chargers, and you're like, Trent, you didn't even put the Chargers at 2 or 3. I don't know. I wanted to, but I just couldn't do it.
They were 4 for me.
I just couldn't do it. They were right there on the fringe.
Yeah.
I'd want to do it. Listen, I love the fact that they took big boy Joe Alt, 6 foot, 9 or something like that, 6'8". Guy's huge, just a mammoth. And I love the fact that they took him, and the first thing that comes out of Jim's mouth is, we pick our linemen like they're weapons. And I'm like, yes, yeah. Give the big boy some credit.
That's how he got the 49ers to be relevant, was he picked offensive linemen. He took 3 offensive linemen and the defensive line, build them from the inside out.
Yep. I like the Chargers picks. I mean, I'll just get away from that before I get too distracted there. Talise Fuanga, he's out of Oregon State, tackle. Struggles to pass block, but I think he's a killer run blocker, and I think the New Orleans State's going to be doing some running this year. Kool-Aid McKinstry out of Alabama. I had a first-round grade on him. They take him at 41.
Yeah.
Once again, I think that's a steal of a pick at 41. I probably would have been fine with taking him in the 20s. So you go get him 20 pick later. That's awesome. And then Spencer Rattler in the 5th round. You know, honestly, for a team that needs a quarterback, they could sit a quarterback. Now, this is a great quarterback selection. Atlanta, check this out. This is where you take a quarterback when you have a veteran.
$100 million guaranteed quarterback.
Yeah. So, you know, they're going to have Derek Carr start again this year. That's okay. And they're going to have Spencer Rattler behind him. Two very similar quarterbacks, actually. I think one of the comps I heard from Spencer Rattler was Derek Carr. So that's fantastic.
Beautiful.
Line it right up, right? And then you got Bubba Means, wide receiver out of Pittsburgh. I don't know if you ever seen this guy's tape, but you would think his name is Bubba. That's all I'm going to say. I actually had pretty good grade on him. I had him in like the 3rd or 4th round. So they take him the 5th. Jalen Ford, linebacker out of Texas. Once again, I did a lot of linebacker tape just because the Eagles need a linebacker. And honestly, Jalen Ford was the only linebacker that I said I'd be willing to take if it wasn't Jeremiah Trotter in the later rounds. Great tape out of him out of Texas. I'm sure the guy had plenty of practice going against some of the best running backs in the league, you know, especially in practice. Jonathan Brooks, I'm sure, gave him a few lessons. But Jalen Ford, I think he's going to be a stud linebacker. I think he starts for the Saints just this year. And then they took a flyer on Kristen Boyd and then Josiah Zizrum. So only reason I think I gave them such a high grade is they honestly had barely any picks. They had a 1st, a 2nd, and then was it 3 5ths, a 6th, and a 7th. They had no 3rd, no 4th round pick. I think for what picks they had, they absolutely killed it. A great starting tackle. They're going to start him year 1. Cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry. I guarantee they start him year 1. And then you go in the 5th round, you get a quarterback who could sit under Derek Carr for this next year. You might start him, you might not. Who knows? Might not work out, but I think it's a good flyer for a quarterback, especially one that gets comped to be just like the quarterback you have starting. And then you got Bubba Means. Honestly, I think he ends up playing a lot of special teams. And then Jalen Ford, he might start for this team. I think he's actually that good. So for the picks they did have, I think they absolutely killed it. When you are limited with what type of picks you have to be very intentional with what you're doing. And they did that very much.
They did the opposite of what Cleveland did. So, okay, so I have as my number 1 team the Steelers, which I think you had number 2. I say the same type of thing. First of all, you're getting position, your need, and you're getting a tackle in Troy Futano, who is a top 12 pick that you're getting much later. And if you look at the draft chart, the NFL draft chart, you'd have to trade up and give up a lot, like another 1st-round pick to move up to where they thought Futano was going to go. So they got a stud there. Then they get Zach Frazier. Then they get their center. I know that was hard for Eagles fans, but out of West Virginia, he was a stud. Roman Wilson, like you said, I think he's a really good receiver, and he was predicted to go earlier in the draft. And Peyton Wilson was actually projected to be a 2nd rounder. The only reason he fell is because of some injury concerns. So his ACL previous injury, so he did fall. So there's a high reward. It's a risk, but a high reward, but a value pick at that round. And so he could be a stud. So I think the Steelers just nailed it. They've got their offensive line is set. They've got cheap quarterbacks. We'll see what they do with those quarterbacks, but you give them an opportunity to succeed when you have great linemen. So
yeah, I mean, I had Troy Futano going 13.
Yeah,
so he falls another seven spots.
That's fantastic.
Great,
fantastic. You don't get the tackle maybe you wanted right before that was taken, I think, by Cincinnati, but you get a stud here. Another one fell, so they're in a great position. So
yeah, and I feel like if the Steelers really wanted the tackle that Cincinnati took.
They could have traded up.
They could have traded up. They knew that the Bengals were going to take a tackle. I don't think anyone had a question whether or not the Bengals were going to take a tackle.
And if you're sitting there going, we're two picks away and we got 2 guys we like, even if it's similar grade, you're like, I'm not going to waste an extra pick. We're happy either way. So they did. I thought they did well. So that's way too early. These are just our predictions. We could be totally wrong. If we are, we'll just burn this tape and go from there. So
who are the players that surprised you the most for where they went?
Players that surprised me the most. I was surprised that Michael Penix Jr., who I thought was going to be in the 20s, and it would not have surprised me if he would have gone out of the first round because quarterbacks usually go really quick, and then if they don't go, a lot of times they drift forward. So I was really stunned at that. And then almost all the 49ers picks, I was surprised where they went. I thought they'd go a little bit later. So.
Yeah.
But I'm a little bitter. What about you?
Jordan Morgan.
Okay.
He went at 25 to the Packers. I didn't think he was really that good. I had a second round grade on him. They took him in the first. So, Chop Robinson, they took him. Miami Dolphins took him at 21. Oh, man. If I'm the Miami Dolphins, I'd trade back and take him at like 20-something.
Kool-Aid, I was surprised he went so late. I thought he'd be a late first-round pick.
There was a lot of players that I was surprised that they went as late as they did. Jeremiah Trotter Jr., the Eagles end up taking him, but most people had like a 3rd or 4th round grade on him, and I think we got him in like the 6th or 7th round. Brendan Rice, he was like one of the last picks in the draft, and some people were saying he's going maybe in the 2nd round.
Yeah.
I mean, gosh. I'm a little mind blown that no one said, hey, let's take a flyer on the son of the greatest wide receiver to ever play the NFL.
Yeah. I wonder if that hurt him.
It's possible.
You know, sometimes that can help you and sometimes that can hurt you because, you know, all the pressure of you got rid of him and, you know, is he going to live up to it? And does he have the mental capacity? You would think maybe he would be in the sun, but sometimes that could be overwhelming. So,
well,
who knows?
I don't think it helps considering he also played at a program at USC where he's playing with what's supposed to be the greatest quarterback we've seen since Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
So that's probably not helping him either because they're like, oh, man, he had the best quarterback in USC, you know, maybe history.
And you're not a first-round grade.
And you're not a first-round grade. What does that say about you?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Who
But
knows?
I guess, I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but maybe you just take a flyer on the son of the greatest wide receiver to ever play football. Just saying.
Yeah, there was some sons out there that were fantastic that were out there. Yeah, Gore, McCaffrey.
Yep, Washington took Luke McCaffrey.
Yep.
3rd in the 3rd round, which honestly I had a much higher grade on Brendan Rice than I did Luke McCaffrey. No offense to Luke, but he is small.
Yeah.
He's out there playing wide receiver. He's even smaller like weight wise than Christian.
Yeah.
And he's short.
Yeah.
And they got him out there playing wide receiver. I think there's a very slim chance that Luke ends up making something of himself in the NFL. No offense to Luke. No offense to Christian and his family. Man, I would just be mind blown. I mean,
I'll tell you, if that family tree though, there is some genes that are working really well because that is an insanely talented group of family members. But anyway, well, that's it for now. We'll see if our predictions and projections or whatever going forward are what we think. We could be totally wrong, and Michael Penix Jr. could be the next thing. And some of these players that we think were at the top, maybe they won't work out, but we'll find out, and then we'll come back, and maybe next time we'll come back, we will be talking about the way too early predictions of the top teams in the league based on free agency and the draft. So thank you for joining us. And until next time, we'll come back. Thanks.